Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Gold Forum Americas is brought to you by Metalla Royalty and Streaming.
Big risk, big reward is often the name of the game in the mining space. And a courageous bet in 2014 now sees the Fruta del Norte gold mine in Ecuador as one of the best gold mines in the world. This is Paul Harris with Kitco Mining at the Gold Forum Americas in Colorado Springs. And to tell me more about Fruta del Norte is Ron Hochstein, President and CEO. Ron, welcome to Kitco.
Thanks, Paul. Great to see you again.
Likewise. Now, you've been hitting it out the park at Fruta del Norte. The results have been incredible, getting better and better, quarter on quarter, year on year. One of the highest producing, highest grade, and highest margin mines in the world. What's the secret sauce?
I think the secret sauce is it starts with the ore body, and that's always been a Lundin philosophy is you look for the great assets. And you look, the jurisdiction, we do look at it, but out of the Lundin Group's always been able to handle the jurisdiction. And then there are two things that have always been part of the Lundin Group: great assets and people. And we've been very lucky to put together a great team. I think one of the elements that allowed us to do this, Paul, was a lot of us have been in this mining business for a long time. But how often do we get to say that we were part of the first mine being built in a country today? And to be sort of starting to set the foundation for an industry. I think that's what made it special, and why and how we were able to attract some great people and have them stay and continue as part of the team.
With the mine now operating and running on, pretty much full steam ahead, you've been able to return to exploration, and you've been putting out some very, very great results, both near mine and perhaps further away in the district. How much better can FDN become?
I think FDN is just really the start of as you said, a district. FDN is pretty unique because of how concentrated it's not your typical epithermal deposit and how concentrated the veins are. But what we're seeing based on our drilling to date is more of a traditional epithermal system, but much stronger vein systems and higher grade, bigger veins. So again, I think it's going to show that it's a very good system. But in some respects, Fruta del Norte maybe is just the tip of the iceberg as to what potentially is there in that region of Ecuador.
Well, that's a very tantalizing prospect, isn't it? With that, as that exploration and the new discovery aspects mature, does that paint a picture of potential expansion at Fruta del Norte, or is that more sort of adding years to the mine life?
Actually, we're looking at expanding right now. We've just finished basic engineering. We're moving into detailed engineering to go from our current throughput of 4,400 ton per day to 5,000 ton per day. So we're doing that now. There's also some things we're looking at doing and making changes to the flow sheet to improve our recoveries, because that's the one nut we still have to crack there. But the other exploration, Paul, I think it could be both. It could be further expansion or extending the mine life.
Now, Ecuador has a second round of its presidential election coming up in mid-October. You're very fortunate. You've got all your permits. You've got through all those sort of hurdles. So to a certain extent, I can suppose you can sit back, break out the popcorn and let the fun play out. But it seems both candidates would be positive for the mining sector, both are investment friendly, both are pro-development. What is the word on the ground you're picking up on in terms of what the future holds?
I think the future, the challenge we have though is, as you know, Paul, this election is we're going to elect a president who's only going to have an 18-month term. So it's a little bit like watching a trailer for a movie. We're going to get a snippet of what their policies is going to be and how they could work with the National Assembly, because National Assembly always isn't necessarily as on the same path as the president. So we're going to get a chance to see how whichever candidate is elected can do that. And then we've got another election. So that's the challenge. Are we going to see some significant changes in legislation and everything in the next 18 months? I don't think so. I think they're going to be just trying to, I think in Ecuador, one of the key focuses is going to be security, number one. We've seen some real issues along the coast with the drug cartels now sort of pushing in there. That's where their focus is going to be. But in the longer term, I agree 100%. that either candidate would be good for the mining industry.
In terms of their legislative program, given that they're going to have such a short time window in the current sort of time frame or the current administration, will it mean that their sort of legislative programs won't really be able to advance much? That there'll be more, how should we say, political posturing to try and win the subsequent election, and that will be the moment in time they try to implement a legislative program?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit more of that latter thing you talk about positioning themselves to win the longer term. They may look for some quick wins. There may be some things they could do to improve labor productivity or to maybe enhance in the investment climate for mining. But are they going to be able to reopen the cadastre in 18 months or, deal with the consultation side of things? That's going to be a challenge, and those are the things that we really need to really. These things aren't affecting the two operating mines, but it's really affecting the development for so many projects.
Okay. Now, in recent years, gold producers, we've seen them exercise capital discipline, paying dividends, giving multi-year production outlook, not doing anything crazy on the M&A front. Yet they still seem to have been unable to capture investor interest or general investor interest. What more can be done? What other levers are there?
I think it's. I think we're doing what we have to do, and it's going to be a case of we didn't do this for so long that we've got to build trust back up with the investors that this truly is happening, and we are practicing the capital discipline and capital allocation to do it smartly and to ensure that we're creating shareholder value. I think it will come around.
Lundin Gold is a relatively new or relatively young company in the grand scheme of things. And as I mentioned at the top, you've been hitting it out of the park in terms of your performance. You must come into this sector and to the investors as almost a breath of fresh air.
Yes, it is. Our meetings tend to be short because people just want an update. There's no issues. But it was interesting. I had an investor today say, "How do you keep this up? Because it's gone very well from the start." And that's something that keeps me up at night, actually. It's the same as our safety performance. How do we continue to keep pushing the company through operational excellence, through the exploration results, through continuing to look for M&A opportunities, not sitting back? We have to keep doing that in order to keep hitting it out of the park. And much like our safety, we're very close now to 6 million hours worked without a lost time or a medical incident. And in Latin America, you've been around enough that in Latin America, that's almost unheard of. And how do we not become complacent and make sure that everyone continues to focus on safety? Those are the things that, we just got to continue to say, how can we do better? How can we be better? And that's what I think goes back again to the people. And that goes from the people that are at the drill face all the way up to me, that we've got to keep looking at how can we do better.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned M&A, Ron, because I sometimes feel like a broken record because every time we meet, I ask you about it. But we're in a market where the juniors are really have really low share prices and market capitalizations. So at face value, it presents a great opportunity for gold producers such as yourself to acquire and build out their development pipelines. Is the time fast approaching for Lundin Gold to acquire a second asset and one outside of Ecuador?
If we do anything, it's going to be outside of Ecuador. And I think, Paul, we've just hired Chris Coley, and he started with us in July 1st. He's a former banker from RBC, bringing us a skill set that we didn't have. And let's just say our activities in that area have picked up significantly since CK joined us. And we're looking at a lot of things, but again, we go back to what you said a little earlier about the issues that the investors had with the gold industry before. We got to make sure we do it smart and do it right. And that means, as CK likes to say, we got to kiss a lot of frogs. And but we are stepping it up for sure from the last time that I spoke to you.
There are scant few projects out there that are anything like Fruta del Norte. So when you're looking at potential candidates, what kind of things are you looking for? Because, high grade underground perhaps probably isn't going to be one of those things that's out there.
it's going to be that high grade, again, some political diversification for us, so a safer jurisdiction. I think that's what our shareholders would like to see us do. But, again, I think we can look for the lower cost and unlocking some value. There may be some projects that are tied up in a permitting. We know we're seeing permitting timelines extend through around the world. In the United States, all over the place, permits are increasing. Sometimes these companies that are in that, if it's a single asset, they're just kind of getting by because they don't want to do anything and they're just waiting for the permit. Whereas if we were to acquire, then we've got cash. We can start doing some de-risking, maybe some early works that can be done with before the permit's issued to try and de-risk and create value. So it's a variety of things that we're looking at to try and continue to increase shareholder value.
You've obviously shown and proven that you can build mines and build mines well. So is it a development stage asset more at the top of the list rather than perhaps a company that's already built their mine?
I would say that's our bullseye, is a development stage. Then I think the outer ring would be more like maybe feasibility, maybe even a little earlier stage that we could help bring it along to feasibility and then take it right through to construction, because we could do that very quickly. A producer's probably on that outer ring, because a lot of times you're adding ounces and you've got a culture and everything there. It's a challenge. And, I think one of the benefits we had is, even though Aurelian and Kinross both owned that asset, we were able to essentially start from a blank sheet and really build a culture and everything that we wanted within the company.
Arguably, one of the things that's kept a lid on M&A in recent times is the fact that you have Newmont taking over Newcrest Mining, and Newmont has said that it wants to divest sort of $2 billion worth of assets. You've had the Yamana Gold going to Agnico Eagle Mines and Pan American Silver. Pan American's already divested some of the things it got from Yamana, and potentially some more to come. Are you interested in those kind of opportunities? You've obviously done very well with an asset that a major gold mining company, for whatever reason, couldn't advance with in the past. Fruta del Norte, as you said, was in the hands of Kinross Gold. Do you see potentially opportunities to take another asset from a major gold company and realize value that they were unable to do?
Absolutely. And that's really what, with CK joining our team, and that, because he's been a banker now for many years and seen a lot of transactions. We're not just looking at other single asset or smaller companies. We are looking at assets with all the majors. So our M&A activity right now, Paul, is kind of like a head on a swivel. We're looking forward, but we know we're also one of the few tier one assets out there that's in a single asset company. And we know there's probably some eyes on us. So essentially we need to be looking forward and back. But as everything in the Lundin Group, the for sale sign's always in the front yard. Doesn't mean you don't keep spending money on the house and all that sort of thing, but that for sale sign's always there. And so we're looking both forward and knowing that we may have some inbounds as well.
Do you feel vulnerable as a single asset company, in a market where a lot of the bigger companies really do need to add to their pipelines and their production portfolio? Do you feel a vulnerability?
No, I think we're actually in a very unique position because we've got a very strong, the Lundin family owned 27% of the company. That group has shown historically that they're always looking out for the minority shareholders. So I think we've got our shareholder structure is great in that way in terms of protecting and ensuring we're getting as much value as we can for all shareholders.
To close, Ron, hopes and fears for the next 12 months?
I think the hopes are a hit on the exploration, a significant hit. Andre Oliveira and his team are doing everything we can to do there. So that's the hope, is that we have a significant hit. And fear is just, again, always, I just fear every day that all our employees go to work every day with safety number one in their priorities. And that's probably one of my biggest fears, is I get that phone call that we've had some incident or accident. But I know the team at site really focus on that. And so I think I'm really hopeful that fear will not happen.
Well, Ron Hochstein, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks very much, Paul. Great to see you again.
This is Paul Harris for Kitco Mining at Gold Forum Americas. in Colorado Springs. And if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe.
Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Gold Forum Americas is brought to you by Metalla Royalty and Streaming.